So Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has finally come out, and with that has come the arrival of new lore, new Pokemon, and new history added to the core series. And can I just say, wow, Game Freak did an amazing job in this generation creating a dynamic mystery and creatively well built up finale, cultivating some of the most fun I've ever had in theorizing for a Pokemon game. And by far, the most interesting unsolved mystery is the supposed disc Pokemon. What is the disc Pokemon? You can't encounter it in-game. It's not even available in the post-game. In fact, outside of 2 books, the game treats it as if it doesn't even exist. So it leads you to wonder, what is Game Freak planning to do with it? Well, I think I've cracked the code. Despite never seeing the disc Pokemon in the core game, the mystery of its power and significance has allowed us to piece together just enough information to speculate on some of its capabilities. And what better way to do that than to compare it to its actual real-world counterpart? Every Pokemon in Paldea has significant cultural influence, many of which relate back to Mesoamerican and South American culture. There seems to be other inspirations as well, but we'll get to that later. Within the Scarlet book, we get introduced to the supposed disc Pokemon. Heath's depiction of the disc Pokemon shows it as this lizard with a crystal-like body and a long feathered tail, which eerily sounds familiar to the Quetzalcoatl, a Mesoamerican deity figure which is said to be the creator of humankind and life. Its name in Nahuatl even means the precious serpent or the Quetzal feathered serpent, as it's supposed to look like this dragon-like figure which has these feathers and an extremely long tail, reminiscent of Eastern dragons. Legendary Pokemon are often depictions of these deity-like figures. So if we're able to use a deity figure from Mesoamerica, are we able to translate its history and power into what we presume the disc Pokemon is going to be? Well, we kind of already have that. The Great Crater of Paldea, said to have formed 1 million years ago prior, seems to be that form of translation. The crater is the center point of the region, both in geography and in history, as the entire creation and fall of the Paldean Empire stemmed from the potential that the treasure itself holds. However, unlike many legends in other regions that have a direct impact onto the world, the disc legendary seems mostly undiscovered and unknown, but remnants of its power still persist, as the entire area is completely littered with terrestrialized crystals, especially in the lower strata. And we know for sure that these crystals are directly tied to the disc Pokemon, because not only does Heath's artwork directly show us this with hexagonal-like crystals on its shell, but also Professor Sada and Turo's journal entries say that the crystals are directly tied to it and linked in some sort of way towards its shell. Well then, what's so special about these crystals that are allegedly from the disc Pokemon? Over 140 years ago, glowing Pokemon were discovered within Area Zero. These Pokemon would later be called terrestrialized Pokemon, but there was one problem. Once they were removed from the crater, the light would disappear and they would lose their terrestrialization. It wasn't until Professor Sada and Turo 10 years ago discovered how the crystals were capable of fueling light energy to maintain and trigger the terrestrialization phenomenon. Even in Heath's artwork, his depiction has a symbol for the terrestrialization phenomenon being projected above the crown in a similar fashion to the hats. But then what is terrestrialization, and how is a disc Pokemon capable of such a transformation? We don't know for sure, but there are very strong implications that the disc Pokemon's true power is actually closely related to When reading the Scarlet and Violet book, we see a mysterious plate which can also be found in-game with 2 interconnecting triangles, in other words an hourglass, and 2 circles seeming to be coming from the core section. It's by far the most mysterious and confusing aspect of the game, as there's no leadway into understanding it. The most we can speculate is that it has some sort of relation to Paldea as a country, as it has the cities. Despite this symbol being mostly mysterious, by nature of it being in a hexagon, we actually see that it can be presented and connected in some sort of way to the disc Pokemon. This is even further evident in the finale of the game, when we enter the Time Machine room, where the entire room is littered with triangular crystal-like walls, each able to make up their own individual hexagon. So while we don't understand the purpose, we can at the very least see the connection to the disc Pokemon. It's possible that we're even shown a hint of these crystal powers, as the Phantom Memory entry emphasizes a depiction of a hexagonal crystal on its side, seeming to create or generate some sort of hexagonal projection. It seems to be a light structure, and what solidifies this is with the Pokemon Espathra and its signature move called Lumina Crash, where the user creates a hexagonal structure of a peculiar light that is able to affect minds. As Espathra is seen within Area Zero's lower strata, it could be speculated that it has gained a likeness to the crystals, and it isn't the only Pokemon to do so. Glimmora also resembles aspects of the crystal, with 6 sides to its flowers, with crystal-like appendages in which even the Pokedex states its similarities to Terrajewels. It even shoots laser-like structures. So why is there such a focus on light, and why does this sound so familiar? While Necrozma and its light are capable of using Z moves, the idea of using light to create structures actually sounds a lot closer to a certain phenomenon in the Galar region.
So does Dynamax, is that like a projection or is it like a physical transformation?
あれはそう見えてるだけです。
So is the real Pokemon still just on the ground doing these moves and it's like just a big version of that?
中に普通にポケモンが中にいるんです。
Like floating inside?
それはわかんない。
Dynamax and Gigantamax are techniques in which the Pokemon creates an illusion or large projection of itself. As described in-game, the Dynamax phenomenon is caused by a special power that originates from within the Pokemon, warping space around them and making them appear far larger than they truly are. There is a bit of a disconnect between the way that these two function, however. One grows and the other seemingly creates things, but they do share a much greater connection lore-wise that makes it a lot more interesting. Similar to how the crystals from the disc Pokemon affect the biology of Pokemon and the environment, Eternatus, after the Darkest Day 3,000 years ago, radiated energy in the form of Galar particles, which would in turn produce power spots in the terrain, allowing for the function of Dynamax. These Galar particles also affected the local Pokemon, allowing them to perform Gigantamax. However, Eternatus's Galar particles had another effect. It also affected the plants and fungi, with Max mushrooms functioning and seeming very similar to a certain other plant. Max mushrooms have the capacity to change a Pokemon's Dynamax into its Gigantamax through a soup seemingly altering the Pokemon with the energy of Eternatus in the same way to those who can naturally Gigantamax. The idea of a plant-like substance being able to affect a Pokemon's size sounds familiar. Where have we heard this phenomenon occur? Oh yeah, the Herba Mystica, of which are natively found in Area Zero and are very heavily implied to be the result of the crystal powers, as Arvin states that they are found in Paldea specifically. These herbs have the capacity to make a Pokemon alter their size and grow in a way similar to Dynamax, and we even see them revert back to their original size, as evident by the respective Parardox Pokemon being found in the overworld post-defeat. Kind of like Dynamax. However, one aspect differs. The general size of a Titan Pokemon, while being large, is nowhere close to the size of a Dynamax Pokemon. And in fact, it's actually a lot closer in scale to the way Totem Pokemon are to their respective average size. And what makes this even more interesting is the fact that Totem Pokemon and Titan Pokemon actually have the exact same name in every language except English and Chinese. And even then, they're all just variations of the title of leader Pokemon. Despite this, however, the way Totem Pokemon are made is not related to the consumption of plants, but rather the result of energy spilled over from Ultra Wormholes, specifically Necrozma's light, which is further validated by its Dex entry, directly stating how its power affects the wildlife. The light pouring out from all over its body affects living things in nature, impacting them in various ways. Just like Eternatus and the disc Pokemon. Very similarly as well, Necrozma's light abilities are responsible for its respective phenomenon, Z-moves, where the sparkling stone used to make Z-rings are fragments of its body. So let's get this straight. All three of these Pokemon which came from outer space have power that directly affects the environment and Pokemon, light-based energy that are able to infuse power into other Pokemon or project it, and fragments of their crystal-like bodies are responsible for their respective gimmicks in the form of crystals or stone-like residue. But wait, since we now have Necrozma as an example, we open another door. Or rather, we open a... Professor Moan, during his research for the Ultra Beast project, also discovered the existence of Ultra Wormholes, a portal that would connect to Ultra Space and allow for interplanetary travel. These portals are able to be opened up by the Light Trio, with Necrozma stated to have its light projected through Ultra Space, allowing access to these extra-dimensional worlds. The Ultra Beasts themselves, upon traveling through these wormholes, often gain a red aura, which is reminiscent of the wormhole's energy, the same energy found on Totem Pokemon, which we already know is a result of Necrozma's light. It's also the reason why the Ultra Beasts have the Beast Boost ability. We see a similar phenomenon in Paldea, where the Parardox Pokemon also have the exact same ability, which boosts their strongest stat. And while the red aura isn't seen on the Parardox Pokemon, it is seen on the Titan Pokemon, which is a result of the consumption of the Herba Mystica, which we already established takes the energy from the Disc Pokemon's crystals. The light of Necrozma and the light energy of the Disc Pokemon must have a similar function, and this is further exemplified by the time machine fueled by said crystals being able to create a portal, a wormhole that looks eerily similar to that of the Ultra Wormholes. And what makes this even more suspicious is in the Ultra Space itself, there are only 3 things that exist: the Ultra Wormholes, the occasional Solgaleo and Lunala, and most importantly, crystalline meteoroids that fly through Ultra Space, and they look just like the terrestrialized crystals. If it wasn't for the planets in Heath's artwork, it would actually resemble Ultra Space. And on the topic of extraterrestrial Pokemon, the crown laying on its shell in the artwork even resembles that of the crater, and it could actually represent the impact of a collision, which seems like stretching at first. But if you look at the tail, it also seems to have a ship riding it, as if to indicate they are waves. Waves caused by an impact, a tsunami. In one of the recent episodes of the anime as well, we see a glimpse of what could be potentially the Disc Pokemon, as it bears a resemblance to the orb in Heath's drawing surrounded by ships in an ocean. I mean, the idea of an alien Ultra Beast-like Pokemon being referred to as the Disc Pokemon, it doesn't seem that far-fetched, especially when we're connecting them back to the idea of them being based on Mesoamerican deities, which are often heavily associated with the stars in the skies themselves. Eternatus, on the other hand, that was a bit harder, as there was nothing concrete to tie it back to Ultra Space outside of it simply being alien. But then, by chance, I decided to see if Eternatus's final battle had anything to hint at, and then it appeared. During the battle against Eternamax Eternatus, there are flashes of lightning that seem to create viewings or scenery to different places across Galar. Eternatus, seemingly at its full power, has the capacity to do some sort of space alterations. And what further validates this is that in Dynamax Adventures in the Crown Tundra, it somehow houses legendaries from other regions that are miraculously there for some reason. And the implication that it has to do with Eternatus is explicitly clear by the fact that there is such a large cluster of Galar particles that you can't even use your own Pokemon, as the scientist states they could be infected by them. There's also the existence of the Galarian legendary birds, which realistically doesn't make sense since they're not an adaptation or an evolution over time. Even the Pokédex itself seems confused, as it uncertainly describes them before giving them what should be their supposed names. Known as Articuno, that's why it's called Zapdos, inspired the name Moltres. However, the nail in the coffin the nail in the coffin seems to be that Ultra Beasts are drawn towards it. It's established that Ultra Beasts are drawn towards residual Ultra Wormhole energy in hopes of finding a way back home. This is why Alola is seemingly one of the very few places afflicted with Ultra Beasts, as its history in relation to Necrozma and Solgaleo and Lunala has resulted in a lot of the light energy being left around. So if they're now drawn towards the dens, which mysteriously house legends, some that look the same, some that are drastically different to what should be their counterparts, as well as the previously established space manipulation from the final battle, could it be implying that similarly to Alola, the legendaries in Dynamax Adventures are actually from alternate dimensions, just like the Ultra Beasts? That would prove that Eternatus, to a degree, has some level of wormhole travel like Necrozma, or even the Disc Pokemon, just to a much weaker extent. Unfortunately, however, there is one problem. Unlike Eternatus and Necrozma, who bring Pokemon through these wormholes through space, the disc Pokemon isn't. It's taking Pokemon from different places in time. They're not time traveling through Ultra Space, which seems to disconnect this idea of it being an Ultra Wormhole. But what makes this even weirder are the Parardox Pokemon themselves. Like, you're gonna tell me that Screamtail was around 1 billion years ago when the Pokemon world was still in its pre-Cambrian era, with Almanite and Kabutops literally proving so? Or how about Iron Hands? It's apparently just a guy who was wounded and became a cyborg. And Sandy Shocks physically doesn't make sense. Why would it resemble a modern day magnet? Like Legends of Arceus literally proves this, as it doesn't spawn in the past, and it can only spawn during a space-time distortion where it gets transported from the future. All of the Parardox Pokemon are also similarly stated to somehow only be given a backstory from this paranormal magazine. But why? Why does a magazine have the explanation for them? This is probably the biggest problem with the Parardox Pokemon realistically, because from their respective times, it seems to imply that in actuality, all of them are seemingly fake, as they're literally not possible. And if they're fake, that would mean that the disc Pokemon isn't transporting them from different times, but rather it's... Hey guys, so thank you for sticking out if you watched the entire video. I'm very thankful for that. I'm going to try to have part 2 as done as soon as possible before Pokemon Day. So look forward to that if you can. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thankful for you guys coming through, and a huge shout out to Mixily for helping me with getting a lot of the 3DS footage. I have no idea how to connect my 3DS to get footage from Sun and Moon. So thank you so much. And yeah. I have a lot of other ideas I want to do with this channel, a lot of like gameplay stuff, more interactive. I'm going to be trying to stream a lot more often as well, so look forward to that. Again, feel free to follow me, subscribe, or follow my other stuff if you want more updates. I'm going to be trying to do this a lot more consistently. Yeah, so thank you. Have a good day, and bye.